Greetings this day night. Studio 212 and with my first guest speaker, Dee Marie.
Woohoo! I feel so privileged.
Yes, you should be. You're the ones who helped me make this come true.
Yeah, cool.
So, first thing is, where are you originally from?
Well, I'm from Chicago originally, long, long time ago. The North Side. Now that's very important. North Side versus South Side. You're South Sider. I'm a North Sider. But I spent most of my adult life in California, Southern California, Hermosa Beach area, Redondo Beach area. Spent a couple, 3 years in Atlanta, Georgia, but never became a Southern belle. So now I'm here in Mexico.
You're in Mexico,
Yeah.
right. So, when did you come to Mexico?
It was 6 years now. It was April of 2019.
6 years.
Yeah.
So, was it difficult to relocate over here?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I did my research ahead of time, so I sort of prepared myself for it. I mean, moving to Mexico is never for the faint at heart, especially if you're moving furniture. Now, keep in mind, I was moving across the country with two dogs and a house load of, a U-Haul truck full of furniture. So, I had to research how to get the stuff over here without paying an arm and a leg. And, fortunately, I um, met up with a very reliable mover that I've used several times, and it was nice to get my stuff over here and in the house. And then again, a lot of these houses too come with furniture in them.
Yeah, that's one thing. I noticed for the apartments, for houses, for condos, some have nothing, some are semi-furnished, and some are completely furnished.
Yeah, no, like with my house, there were some cool pieces of furniture. Those like rustic Mexican, like a big. I have this huge china cabinet that fortunately was left, so I sold my other one that was just the typical kind of American style, and I kept the furniture like that. But I walked into the house and everything was nice and clean till I opened up the cabinets and I found dishes and stuff. So first thing I did was go to Cruz Roja Primo Tapia and donate all those extra things that I had. So,
When you came here, what's the first thing you had to learn about living here?
well, I wanted to be as self-sufficient as I could, and for instance, I knew about power outages. I think the power went out the first week or 4 or 5 days after I moved here, and my neighbor was nice enough to let me run an extension cord from the refrigerator
Hmm.
to their house because I had a whole new refrigerator full of food. So that was one of the first things I did was to make sure I got a generator, and uh, and then I was a little naive. The man that sold me the house was very sweet and said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about the water." And he had these little funky little sort of filter on the refrigerator, but he said, "Ah, you could drink the water, no problem."
Yeah, right.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I was like making stuff with the water. And then one day I had the local Mexican handyman. He goes, "What are you doing? You can't drink the water." I mean, they knew it. So next on my list was get a whole home water filter so, system. So there were little things like that, but that makes it part of the adventure of moving here to Mexico.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. For me, I came here because of my parents, and they brought a lot of furniture from Indiana to here. Um, and so I do remember some of the furniture. They brought some chests, which are older than me, and they're still here. But I know so the Chinaware, the cabinets, they couldn't bring that stuff, so they bought new stuff. But some other stuff, a couple was it one or two chairs. My grandmother's used having it, so they brought a lot of stuff, but they couldn't bring all the stuff.
Well, you sort of hate to get rid of stuff that you've
Yeah,
had.
right.
You want that sentimental value. It sort of makes moving to a new place a little easier.
Yeah,
I think it would have been really hard if I just moved here with nothing and just accepted the furniture that was here and that wasn't my own. That would have been, I think, that would have been a culture shock.
yeah. I've
You
been
know,
being a photographer for a real estate agent over here. Over the years, I've seen people who are going to sell, but they're going to sell as is, and so it's like, oh, wow, that's some of the furniture and some of the furnishings are really interesting. Some of the stuff,
yeah,
but I mean, you just don't. You just come in and that's it. Like, wow, that's interesting. All you have to do is bring your clothes, and you're going to have to buy new clothes for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, one of the hard things that I had in decorating my house, though, is because here everything's built out of the cinder block. You
yep.
know, in the U.S. you've got the drywall, and so I used to be really good at hanging up pictures and photos wherever I wanted. Well, all of a sudden I came in here, and the person that lived here before had a lot of stuff on their walls. So they took all their paintings and whatever off. So all of a sudden you got all these screws sitting out of the wall, and to change a screw to hang a photo in a block cinder wall, that's hard. And I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
I'm one of these ladies that likes to have my own little drill kit. So I was like, "Zzz, zzz," if I could use my drill, but no, I couldn't do that on these walls. So again, call the handyman. Can you drill a few more holes so I can hang up my photos?
Yeah, my father, he had a tool shed living in south side of Chicago, but also in the, Indiana. And he brought some of his tools. Sometimes you just want to bring some of those tools. You
Yeah.
just might need them. And I remember my father gave me a toy box. I was like in first grade, second grade, and he has a ruler, and it's still here. We still had it.
Is it
So,
rusty?
it's a piece of wood.
Oh,
So that was it. It
oh,
was a ruler like that one with the lever. That's it.
oh.
So
Okay.
it's like
Well,
we kept it for a memento. So
well, that's the thing. If you live anywhere near the coast like I do, you realize that anything metal. I mean, I was used to that in California. I live close to the coast, but here I have my whole little thing of my screwdrivers and hammers,
yeah,
and they are all rusty now because they're
yeah,
out in the garage.
that's
They're all
something neat to
rusty.
learn.
Yeah.
One thing is that one's what culture shock.
Yeah, well, the language, obviously, because I speak absolutely little Spanish. I mean, I'm getting better at least.
Solamente poco español.
I'm getting better at reading the words. I cannot put necessarily in a sentence, but the language. But as long as you got Google Translate, some of the food's different. Like there's just subtle nuances. Like I can't think of what often. Well, like sour cream, for instance. And I know, here you get sour cream on stuff. Like Mexican food. But to me, it doesn't taste the same as sour cream in the U.S.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't.
that's
There are
true.
certain foods that I still will go across the border to get. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, what is unique about living here in Rosarito?
I think it's got that small town feel, which is sort of interesting because, being originally from a big city like Chicago, and then, even though I lived in Hermosa Beach, it's still a suburb of Los Angeles, huge city. So coming here to Rosarito, one of the main things that I always like, there's basically two main roads. You can't really get that lost. You're either going on the free road or you're going on the quota. And interestingly, they parallel each other. So I always thought that was pretty amusing when I moved here. It's like, whoa, they're not that far apart. Now, going through Tijuana, that's different. Tijuana, the roads never go in the same direction. But yeah, it's a small town feel. You get to know the people. I think the people here are the local people. Want to help. They want to
Hmm.
help you out, and so yeah,
Here's something else. You have an EV car.
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Don't hate me. Some people hate them, but I don't hate 'em.
Okay. Tell us about the EV car.
Well, that was just I do some crazy things sometimes. That was sort of, when was that during the pandemic or what? When all of a sudden gas prices got really, really expensive, and I was driving a, mid-size SUV, a Ford Edge, and back then I used to go across the border probably at least once a week, sort of homesick in a way. Um, and I noticed that I was guzzling up the gas, and gas prices were getting expensive. And then all the EV cars started coming out. And one of my kids got the Mustang Mach-E, and I said, it's time for me to get a new car. Should I get a hybrid? And he goes, oh, Mom, just go ahead and go for it. So, fortunately, I have a home with solar panels, and those solar panels regenerate back into the system. So my electric bill is very low. So I thought, well, I'll take a chance. So what's the worst that can happen? Oh, I run out of power. So anyway, I installed a charger in my garage. So I have a
Mm.
level 2 charger. So it only takes, my car is a fast charging electric vehicle, so I'm able to charge it in a couple hours. And I can drive from here all the way up to see my kids in Los Angeles area in one charge. So it's fun. It's a fun little car to tool around. However, as I found out, my car sits sort of low, and sometimes I come up to those curbs, where you go to park in front of a restaurant and the curb's sort of high, and I many times have scraped the bottom of my car on that. So, but, oh well, what are you going to do?
So how do you get to know Rosarito? How do you get to know the culture, but also for the people and stuff? How do you get involved?
Well, that's the big thing. You got to get involved. There was a point in my life a couple of years ago where I was just sort of comfortable where I was at. I'm living in a nice house in a nice neighborhood and all by myself. And, I didn't have to go out to Rosarito. And then I met somebody that suddenly showed me Rosarito. That could be you by
Yep,
funny
that's
chance.
right.
And then all of a sudden you become a little bit more comfortable. And now Rosarito seems really small to me. In fact, somebody the other day goes, "Oh, you live all the way down there by Splash and you're coming all the way here to downtown Rosarito. That's so far." And I go, "Not really. I
Yep.
mean, I do that many times." Um, so Rosarito seems like a very small area to me now, and I know how to take those shortcuts off the quota if I get off at the Jersey Cows if I want to go to a certain area of downtown, or
Mm.
get off at the Rosarito Beach Hotel exit if I want to go to this other area. So, but that's the main thing. You've just got to get out there. You've got to get out there. You've got to go to these restaurants, meet the people, go to the little shops. I always like it when we go down and we're parked past Oceana there and we walk by all those shops, that like bazaar area.
Yeah, I call it a hidden bazaar of Rosarito. There's like about 200 stalls for uh, souvenirs, knickknacks, jewelry, stuff like that one. I have a video years ago, well, 6, 7 years ago, and I call it a hidden bazaar of Rosarito. It's so unique, but it's a great place to buy stuff.
Yeah.
That's
a-
it.
And then when we walk by there, how many hellos do you get? Hey, Diego, Diego,
At least one. That's from
Yeah.
Orlando. He's the only one that one.
And,
Yeah.
so you get to know the people, the shop owners and stuff like that. And
Right, right. That's it. You get to see no, you get to see you, they see you, they get to know you, and that's something else. That's I really enjoy that.
yeah,
When I'm going down the main street, and when I used to live at Rosarito Shores years ago, for my with my father, I used to walk around downtown. So I
uh-huh.
used to meet people and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And sometimes they ask, even the Mexicans ask me, "What's going on for the news? Like, what's going to happen? What the events?" I said, "Okay," because I always had to keep up tabs with the events for something with going on before the pandemic and now after the pandemic. But we know the festivals won't be resuming back. But the thing is, we have new festivals. But the thing is, it's a great thing. People are asking, "Hey, what's going on?" and stuff. It's a great feeling to know that people know you,
Yeah,
recognize you.
yeah. Well, and I think that's a mistake a lot of expats moving down here make. They just want to stay in their comfortable little zone,
Yeah.
like within a mile of their home. And the way these neighborhoods are, depending on where you are, the further south you go from Rosarito, then you've got basically little neighborhoods and the restaurants that are within 1 mile, and that's all the people come down for.
Yep.
You know, uh, so if you don't get out, if you don't force yourself to go into Rosarito, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in Rosarito. I mean, and there's little bakeries and all sorts of stuff. And that's the other thing that's difficult when you drive down the boulevard. It's not like in the US where you have big signs and you can
Mm.
find a place. Sometimes somebody will tell you about a place and you have to either drive really slow, or the best thing is to park your car and just walk.
Yep. That's right.
And then you get to actually see the individual little shops,
Yep.
and you go, "Oh, I didn't know there was a place like that here." I mean, now I've found, you've helped me find places like to fix a cell phone, fix a computer, if you want a watch band. I mean, there's all little things like that that are all in that area, that if you don't get out, if you just stay in your house and stay within that little safe zone of where you live, you're missing out a lot,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. So besides here in Rosarito, we've been to Ensenada and Tijuana. What other places have you visited here in Mexico?
Well, I mean, obviously, last 2 years we went down to Guerrero Negro to visit the whales, to see the whales and to touch the whales. That was fun. Years ago, I one of my favorite areas, and I still want to get back to that, is the Cancun, Playa del Carmen area. Not necessarily Cancun, but south of there. On the east side of the mainland. I like that area. Um, obviously, yeah, done the Tijuana, Ensenada. Been to Tecate. We did the Tijuana Tecate train for
Hmm.
Day of the Dead. Have not been to Mexicali. Have not been to San Felipe. Been to Loreto and La Paz on the cruise last year. Love that area. Love Loreto especially. I still want to get to Bahia de Los Angeles. Is
That's
that
right,
what?
Bahia
Yeah,
de Los
yeah.
Angeles.
Because I want to go swim with the whale sharks.
Whale
But
sharks, and also I have, I don't have it with me. I have the arrowhead sand
oh
dollar.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
got a bunch of those
Yeah,
years and years ago. About 9 or 10 years ago.
yeah,
And that's something unique, and it's on the Sea of Cortez, and it's really really unique about that one.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So there's so many places to explore, and now I'm just talking Baja, but I've got a lot of things on my bucket list, wish list, whatever you want to call it. I want to go to Oaxaca because it's
yep,
so colorful. I love that whole area. Mexico City's on my list.
you're
Um,
gonna need at least a couple of weeks from Mexico City. I
yeah.
mean, you could spend at least 1 or 2 full days, and that's the National Anthropology
Oh,
Museum.
wow.
It's
See, I
I've been there,
love museums. I love going to
and
museums.
that's yeah. You actually have the Aztec sun calendar in that one,
Oh,
the
wow.
real one up there. Oh, so much stuff. It's really interesting. I remember seeing stuff like PBS specials and when I was in elementary school and middle school, seeing about the Aztecs, the Mayans, stuff like that one, and then you actually see that in Mexico
Yeah,
City in that museum, and that's one thing. You have Chapultepec Park, and that's a unique place. It's another museum, but it's so unique because you're looking up over over the city, but you could see some of the furniture, and it's just about 200 years old for
oh,
that one.
wow.
Oh,
See,
it's incredible. And then you got more things to do, and also you have the National Cathedral, the National Palace. I mean, there's so many things to do there.
well, that's it. And when I moved to Mexico, that was supposed to be my goal was to have a place I could call home, but then travel,
Mm.
travel. So, I have never flown from Tijuana to any place. So, there's some things I want to do, and hopefully in the next year or two, I'm going to get that opportunity. So,
So, well, here's the final question.
uh-oh.
The thing is this: what would you say to someone who is interested to live here in Rosarito? What advice would you give them?
First of all, don't believe everything you read on Facebook. Because you could get some really bad advice out there as well as good advice. I think the best thing would be is just come down here. Come down here for like a week or even a weekend. Just try it out. Just you know, you gotta first of all you've got to want to be down here to try it out, but you got
Mm.
to try the food. Just drive along the coast, just see the places, and just give it a you know see if it's something that works for you. I don't think moving here is not for everybody. Visiting here is definitely for everybody. I mean, there's something anybody can find
Mm.
here in Rosarito, at least for a weekend. So
So anyway, well, thank you for the first guest speaker on Studio 212.
thank you for having me.
Yep, and thank you for we made the studio right here. No one can see this because we're on a green screen. We have a green wall. And so anyway, the key says this is the first. I did a live transmission the other day just to see if it works. It works, but we can post this stuff. It's live is one thing, but the thing is we want to record this so we can do more stuff like this one.
Well,
So
I'm looking forward to your other guests that you'll be
yeah, well,
having.
that's a wooden way to start. And we know a couple of people might be interested. And the thing is, this is a good way to talk about your story, introduction about here and your life stories, your war stories, whatever stories. But the thing is, the adventures here, living here in Rosarito in Mexico.
And everybody's got a story in Mexico.
That's right. All right, this is Diego Knight, host of Studio 212 with the first guest speaker, Dee Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.